And welcome to the Big Gunner Podcast. We did it. The Giants did it. Fantastic draft. Kind of looks like we're in a form of getting back to what we did last year, which I think the last year's draft, after the quotes from John Mara, probably saved Shane and Dable their jobs. But here's where we go. We start off right away getting Abdul Carter. Stud, best player probably on the board. Watched him play live against in the Penn State Notre Dame game. Was an X factor the whole way. Playing on a bad foot too, I guess at that point also was absolutely fantastic in that game. Where the Giants have had success, and I'll go back to my time in the '80s, and is we basically had defensive fronts that dominated. The 2007 game, the shock when we beat the Patriots. That day, the pressure they applied on Brady was just too much, too dominant. The front that we had with JPP and and Tuck, in the 2011 Super Bowl, that was huge too. And then you go back to the '90s Super Bowl that day, where we were rushing two men and just played a different scheme, but we had a good front. Then Leonard Marshall was still with us there, Eric Howard, John Washington, and we just have always had good defensive fronts. What I see now with the addition of Abdul Carter, Burns and Carter on the edge, maybe Thibodeau coming inside, rushing up against a guard. We'll figure if that can work. We just have, Dexter Lawrence, who's probably as good of interior pass rusher as there is in the game right now. This is where the factors that we miss are going to change. Sorry about that. The factors will change defensively. The Giants went out and got Adebo and Holland to put with the young Nubin and the corner Banks. Hopefully we'll get better. And Phillips, who I think is going to be a great player. Secondary comes together. Bobby Okereke still with us. Hopefully McFadden gets better. We get an interior linebacker. I think that might be something that we might look to. If there's a trade, maybe get someone next to Bobby Okereke that can be effective. But there's a lot of people out there that love McFadden. I look at this defense. We are going to be better if we're healthy. This team has to stay healthy. And what everybody has to know, and I've said it numerous times, Brian Dable and Joe Shane, we need a stability. They're ready to go. I think you cannot keep flipping GMs and especially coaches and have stability in your locker room with veteran players. It just doesn't work. These things don't work. You're obviously getting rid of your coach because you're not playing well. I love the fact that we kept him against a minority opinion against everybody. And I think with this draft and what I see in the top 5 picks that we had, I look at it like very similar to last year. Different positions, different players, but very similar. So Abdul Carter, to me, best pass rusher in the draft. Another edge guy to apply pressure. Add with Burns. He's coming in there not to be the whole X factor for the defensive front, but a complement to what we have, 2 basic Pro Bowl, All-Pro type players in Lawrence and Burns. Pressure's off Carter. Thibodeau's now a little less pressure. Maybe we rush 4 there. I think our pass rush should be the most formidable in the league, which changes everything. Now, what also that does is makes our secondary better. Now we have guys who can get picks in Adebo and Holland. We only had 1 interception for 13 games at one point last year. That all has to change. The pass rush will probably make a quarterback make different decisions, which would enhance our turnover margins, I think, in the secondary. So I think our secondary, nothing to do but go up. I think we'll create more turnovers, which will change games, change field position, which is important in winning games in this league. Now, the trade. So we're going to talk about this at length, but the trade to me was huge. I was for sure it was for Shedeur Sanders. I didn't trust that we knew enough. I have been touting Jaxson Dart from the very beginning as my favorite quarterback in this draft. Last year, my favorite quarterback was Jaden Daniels. We saw how that ended up. I look at this like when the Giants called Jaxson Dart's name, I was out in Las Vegas in my hotel. I nearly jumped, actually I was at a dinner, but I jumped 30 feet in the air. I said this was it. And a lot of my friends felt the same way. We didn't want the baggage of the family thing, the distraction off field of Shedeur Sanders. And plus, more importantly, played most of his career at Jackson State, played the last 2 years at Colorado, got blown up in the bowl game when he tried to play, and they had all their horses playing in it, which I commended Colorado for doing so. I just wasn't sold that he was the guy for the Giants. And this was prior to the Jameis Winston move, prior to the Russell Wilson move. But now I feel that quarterback room is as best as Brian Daboll has had. And I think this is what you're going to see. Brian Daboll, who's great with young quarterbacks. You can go look Josh Allen, in Alabama with Hurts and Tua, Brett Favre with the Jets, he was was in Cleveland. He's been all over the place. And I just look at it like now this is what he's got. He's got his guy that he wanted. Supposedly Jaxson Dart's the guy he coveted in his draft. Giants went out and get him and give the guy his chance. I mean, I always think to give the guy his chance. I go back to the 83 team. Parcells picked the wrong guy, and I told him about it. Next year when I got my job, I thought was right to pick Sims over Bruner. That was his mistake. 3-12-1, gets Sims and wins. Maybe this is the guy. Maybe Russell Wilson plays 5 or 6 games and Jaxson Dart comes in. And, by that time he's ready to go. But we're going to know this by week 1. But the big problem for our younger fan base who wanted change, wanted these guys out, who wanted Shedeur Sanders, who wanted the big quarterback, and we decided to go end, which I think was the right move. These guys' jobs are on the block. I trust Brian Daboll. I believe that this is what we did the right thing. I think he's got his guy. I think we got the edge rusher we need. I think our defense is going to be better. If we stay healthy, this team is going over 5.5 wins. If we lose a left tackle and the line starts breaking down and we're not running the ball, it's the same old story. We just don't have the depth. So I love the pick of Dart. I think Carter's going to be a star. And then we obviously gave up our 2nd round pick to move back into the 1st. And the 3rd pick, we picked Darius Alexander, who I watched in Toledo was a good player. Now we have another guy possibly that could come in right away and sit next to Lawrence. It might be a pass rusher. Big motor, athletic, scored a touchdown off an interception as a big lineman, like a 40, 50-yard touchdown run against a Power 5 team. I think the kid's going to be really good. Another piece, what we need. What this league is coming down to, in my opinion, after last year, and I talked about this with the running back position, you had Josh Jacobs go to Green Bay. Green Bay has a running game and has success, helps out Jordan Love. You had Derrick Henry go to Baltimore, makes Lamar Jackson look even better. The stats on Lamar Jackson were twofold. You had Saquon Barkley obviously leave us, and we know what that result was, how unhappy he was. He ends up going, they win the Super Bowl. The running back position has gotten a little bit more. This year, this back position is the fastest group of running backs ever to come out of the combine. A lot of great backs that are there. After Alexander, we draft Cam Scatterbo, who I think he's a gamer. I think he's going to make this roster. I think he's going to get the ball in short yardage on the goal line. I think he moves people. I think he plays hard. I think he's the exact guy. His emotion of being a New York Giant got me going. Bring this guy in. I watched him. You watched the highlights of what he did against Texas and what he did against Iowa State. He is a bona fide, tough kid star. Exactly what the Giants, the New York fan base, exactly the way we've been liking this team, wanting defenders and tough players for 50 years. I love that pick. And I don't think it was a reach. I don't care about his 4.6 speed. We don't need him to break touchdown runs. We have Malik Neighbors. He can do that. Tyrone Tracy can do that. We needed the tough yards, the short yardage back that we needed. Don't want to put all that all on top of Tracy. Now we have another back I think he'll complement. I think he'll probably get 5 to 8 carries a game. If he stays healthy, another piece. This is what you have to do. You got to get these pieces. And I was thrilled with that pick. And I was out playing golf with a guy who worked for Arizona State, who follows Arizona State closely, and thought it was an awesome pick too. Thinks the kid was the catalyst of why they had such a great season and why they got as far as they did, to the playoff. So, that's, to me, in a nutshell, the 4 top picks that we have. We'll get next week. We'll get deeper in, and I'll do a deep dive into it. But Marcus Mabo was a guy that we thought, I talked to another guy who played offensive line in college. I asked him about if he knew him. He follows Big Ten football. He said he was a star. You got him in the 5th round, he said. I said, yeah. He goes, wow, that's really good. We saw him projected on Tankathon to go to the Giants in the 2nd round. So, great pick there. had maybe an injury too. We'll see what happens. But now when they get to the big time and big leagues and big challenges, some of these guys rise up. I was extremely happy with this draft, probably as much as last year. Always wanted a wide receiver. Wasn't sure Neighbors was the guy. I wanted Harrison, but it turned out we got a star in Neighbors. This team is only can go up, and I feel pretty comfortable and confident that what we have done in this draft, it was important. And again, I go back to this. The Shedeur Sanders situation is such that I think this happens. The best thing for that kid, to me, was him falling in the draft. I just think we're at a time, the running backs last year, now the quarterbacks. We had 2 quarterbacks picked in the first round. Tyler Shaw in the second, Dylan Gabriel in the third, that I saw quick. I mean, they just didn't go as high as we did. Maybe it's the class or maybe it's this. But I believe in my heart of hearts, your defensive line, your offensive line is where you're going to win football games. The Giants made a unique choice that I'm not sure about, where they basically decided to bring back the players that were on that line, which told me that Brian Dable and Joe Shane feel it was the quarterback position that let us down, not the offensive line. The offensive line was very, very rough after Andrew Thomas got hurt. Hopefully the depth comes back together, play together another year. Continuity on the offensive line takes the same personnel playing time after time to work things out. We're going to see what happens here. I am very interested to see what happens with the offensive line. Hopefully we stay healthy through camp and getting into the season. But that's the name of the game. We stay healthy. Our left tackle stays healthy. I've talked about this so often. I feel very positive after what we've done. And I can't wait to see Jaxson Dart in the preseason and see what he offers us. The big thing between him and Sanders is Dart is more mobile, can make plays with his feet, a little more athletic, make tough throws. Shedeur could probably do the same things. I didn't see him as more of a mobile quarterback. But I thought when you came to him was a lot more off-field distraction, more of a me guy. Don't know if that resonated with GMs and coaches that looked at him. These are the stories I heard. I heard Brian Dable, the story I read, that he kind of was disenchanted with the interview process with him. That kind of turned away from, made the Giants turn away. They made a big effort out there to get close to him. So probably thought he was going to be a Giant. Just a lot of commentary about it. Did Shedeur, Deion and Shedeur handle it like Eli and Archie with the Giants? I don't know, putting demands out there. I just look at it this way for the Shedeur Sanders as a player and as a person. He got humbled, if he can be so, that he went in the 5th round. But now it's nowhere but up. There's no pressure on this kid to come out there and perform right away. He's a 5th round draft choice. These players do not play long careers and even get snaps in the NFL. Anything up here is a bonus. He's made a ton of money already, drives his ice hot cars he wants to brag about. Now it's about going on the field, being yourself, being a part of a team, and realizing it's not about you. And I think if this kid does it, he'll be successful. I think he's got the right pedigree, highly successful father, successful in everything he does. They're successful around this kid. Maybe this is the league saying something that this is it. But my thought is this is about your offensive and defensive lines. Stay healthy, get continuity, and play well. Those teams are probably going to the playoffs. So I think there's nothing holding us back. Last year when all the sharps were betting under 6.5 Giants, it was because of the quarterback play. Nobody trusted Daniel Jones. That's the story why the sharps were betting under. Now, if we start the season with Russell Wilson, we have a competent, potential Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning quarterback with a top-notch frontline target in Malik Neighbors, with a young second receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson, a complimentary veteran third receiver who's led our team in receiving 4 of his 6 years in Darius Slayton, and you got a tight end, Theo Johnson, who was coming up until his injury. No excuses on that on the offensive front. Decent back with Tracy. We'll find another guy to bring in along with Scadaboo, I'm sure. I think we're going to be fine at running back. It's all about the offensive line. John Michael Schmitz, if you can hear me, you're the guy. The center's got to keep bringing it all together. He's in his 3rd year now, has to play better. He's going to be the important piece here. If Schmitz gives us what we thought, projecting him as an early 2nd round pick, and he could be, a really dominant player, now's the time. So I feel really positive about this draft. very positive, a lot of positivity going into the season. Can't wait to see where we head. I thought it was just fantastic. The tight end we drafted out of Nebraska, I think is more of a run blocking tight end that I saw. The DB out of Oklahoma State is a nice little player. Oklahoma State's defense has been better in the past. I think you just can't have enough depth at corner. So I like the picks. I like the picks all the way up and down the line. Yeah, it's just nothing but exciting times for Giant fans, and I like the feedback was all positive. And I saw Todd McShay's clip about Giant fans complaining about this. Everybody's going to complain. This guy's not. I like the fact we kept the cast staff together. I love the fact that we got Carter. I love the fact that we got Dart. I love the fact we got Scottaboo and Darius Alexander. You can't help a stud tackle, projected second round guy, early second round guy, getting him in the third round was a fantastic move for us, and he's a player. We have that Deontay Johnson, who's another Toledo guy that I'm sure can give us more information on how good Alexander is. But I like him as a player too. He showed us a lot. So maybe these Toledo defenders, are tough kids and can play. So a lot of excitement. Getting over to the sports and gambling, Miami Heat. What happens to Eric Spoelstra now? I'll be very interested to see if there's some questioning lines of what Eric Spoelstra is gonna have go on. Losing 2 games by 92 points at home, games 3 and 4, is a tough pill to swallow as a Heat fan. I really thought they would show up, Pride. I think they have to really address the Tyler Hero situation if he really wants to commit to the defensive end, maybe work on his body a little bit to get stronger, because it just doesn't seem like he has the know-how, the energy on defense. Great scorer, nice player. Maybe he needs to be relegated to the bench as well as good as he is. But I thought his defense hurt us in Cleveland, and I didn't really follow. I just looked at scores, was watching a little bit of the game. But the Heat, the energy in the crowd was the worst I've ever seen as a Heat game. It looked like it was a preseason crowd. I think, maybe they were worn out from the run to get into the playoffs. Maybe the Jimmy Butler thing had a lasting effect on them, the trade. But the Heat have got to seriously look at their roster and serious moves. Now the rumor is that maybe Giannis has some interest to come to Miami. We've heard that before. That would be fun to do, but the Heat are done. Cleveland moves on. Second game last night, we had a little winner with Houston. +4, lucky, we covered a 3. Just felt I wasn't sure if Jimmy Butler was playing, but felt like after that game, Houston would bounce back in the series. They don't get the win. They're down 3-1. Jimmy came in at the end and played very well. They do a good job locking up on Steph Curry in Game 4. But again, the way these games are officiated and the little foul calls and the going to the review and all that, the game is getting tougher and tougher to watch. But the game ended great. Sengun misses a jump hook. Draymond Green gets away with it. I thought Draymond Green being on the floor was a little interesting after the first tech, and I thought he should have got a technical on the flagrant foul because it basically happened on the ground, so I guess they didn't want to throw him out of the game. Come to look at it, that it might have been a difference in the game for Houston, but Houston had a 7-point lead at halftime, and it got evaporated real quick, and it got a bigger lead, got a 4-point lead, going into the fourth or third quarter, I think, and blew that. So, we're gonna see what happens. But in that series is gonna get interesting as it goes back to Houston 3-1. Maybe Houston can make a run, steal a game down there, and then maybe figure out a way to get Game 6. But I think Golden State will probably close them out. Panthers get a big win last night. Both teams score goals in 11 seconds. Pretty incredible. Great game to watch. Love watching playoff hockey a little bit more. As a lifelong basketball player, love the coach, sport, ref, organized leagues. Hockey seems to be taking over in my heart. Hearts to watch the hockey. But the Panthers get a big win last night they needed. Looked like they were getting outplayed, down 2-1, scored a goal, were answered real quick. Tampa gets the goal. Second period, I think the game probably looks like it's over. Panthers get the tie with 12 minutes left, get the go-ahead goal right away. Both teams scored 11 seconds apart. Fantastic. Get the empty net goal, win 4-2. Dallas takes another game from Colorado. My hockey guys are telling me Colorado was the cinch in the West to come out and make the cup. Now they're down 3-2, face elimination at home. That should be a very interesting game. I think Colorado takes it to a Game 7, so that will be one of our bets we'll give out. Colorado wins Game 6. Tonight, Edmonton, that game was unbelievable. I watched it overtime in the airport. Edmonton plays the Kings tonight. I think the Kings have really played well in this series and shown themselves well. I think they get this game. I've been on Edmonton all 4 games in the series. Kind of think the way I've seen these games play in Edmonton that the Kings had a chance to really win game 4. Game 3 might have taken a bad challenge there and ended up losing 7-4. No business for Edmonton winning that game. I think Kings come back and win, and it goes back to Edmonton for game 6 with the Kings up 3-2. Carolina will close Devils out tonight. I like that bet tonight. Colorado, Carolina, you can lay the wood there. In the NBA, Orlando stole a game and had a chance down the stretch in game 4. Kind of think the Celtics close it out, but you might get a cover in there. Maybe Orlando's showed well in this series, gets a chance to play. I think you got Milwaukee and Indiana. I think the Damian Lillard injury, man, what has happened to Damian Lillard? So we think we're getting him in Miami. He goes to Milwaukee. They struggle. Now Giannis is going this way. Who knows what happens to the Bucks? Brought Doc Rivers in there to basically see what happens, and that doesn't really work out. So, the Bucks are in a little bit of turmoil. I think they go by the wayside tonight as Indiana takes that series. So there's a lot happening in sports and a lot happening with the Giants, but we're going to have action throughout. We're going to be on with Jeff on Thursday, talk more probably about Shedeur Sanders, which I believe, hindsight being 2020, I think this is a good thing that happened to him. The pressure's off him. I think he'll be okay in this situation, just very much how you adapt. You see all that AI stuff, blow it all off. Sanders family got humbled. Shiloh doesn't get drafted. So I think this is all going to figure it out. But again, we're going to be back here next Tuesday with more hoop and hockey action. Staying away from the baseball right now, too tough to figure out, engulfed in the hockey. But tonight we like Carolina. We like the Kings. We like the over. The Knights are playing Minnesota Wild. We like the over in that game. All 4 games have gone over. Don't see a change here. The line's still staying at 5.5. I like the Minnesota has played very well in the series. The Knights getting the big overtime win 2-2. I think they're a big favorite. I don't think I would lay 220. There's nothing that shows me that the Knights have dominated this series at all. I kind of like Kaprizov and Et for Minnesota. I think getting those guys back has been a big difference in the series. This series is going 7, that's for sure, I think. I wouldn't be shocked if the Knights win it in 6 unless there's some major injury. I think we're going to be in Vegas for game 7. So that's another game tonight. We like over that game, Carolina, and the Kings in hockey. So 3 bets in hockey we're going to give you out. And we'll be back next Tuesday with more Giants. Big Gunner 1984 on Instagram. Follow us. We're giving out our picks throughout the week. We'll be on with Jeff DeForest here on No Filter Network on Thursday morning at 9:15. So look forward to seeing all you then. Until then, go Big Blue.